figures here, it just means the three of us like this.
Okay.
See? Yeah, I know where everybody is, so just the three of us right now. First off, I'm just gonna talk about the test. It's not great yet, I apologize, I definitely haven't read that tomorrow. But we can just go over real fast. What is the example of a saddle joint?
Thumb.
He said sagittal?
Saddle.
Thumb.
Oh, saddle.
Is the thumb, yeah. So saddle joint was the thumb, what's the pivot joint?
Yep.
No, pivot was the neck up here at the head. Okay, some of you guys had ball and socket. Ball and socket is what?
The hip.
That's hip and shoulder. And then some of you guys had hinge. Which one was hinge?
Knee.
The knee or the elbow. Okay, those are the examples I went across. Through that part, those ones you guys had. You remember now. How would you best describe the orientation of the elbow to the shoulder? Using directional terminology.
Distal.
You could say distal, or you also could say
Superior.
elbow to the shoulder. So
Elbow to the shoulder would be
is
inferior.
inferior, right? So inferior distal is how that one worked. There's a couple different questions on there, but
You
it's
said either or?
either or, yeah.
Okay, good.
Whichever one you put. What is the all or none principle? All or none principle.
Anytime a, nerve cell, a motor unit activates, the nerve activates all the muscles that it's connected to. It cannot just activate some of the muscles like.
Right, so all the muscle fibers that that motor unit controls will all fire at the same time.
Right.
And how does that control 90 pounds versus 5 pounds?
Brain, central nervous system looks at it.
And does what?
and
Besides, how many
motor units fire?
motor units are turned on? So we're talking about, we're not controlling the muscle fibers, we're controlling the motor, we're controlling the motor units that are being used. Alright, so that was that one. What plane of motion does the Russian twist take place in? Plane motion hallway.
Transverse.
Transverse. Plane motion hallway is the chin up take place in?
That's sagittal.
That's sagittal. What's the
And then
pull
pull
up?
up is,
From
transverse.
Frontal.
Frontal.
So it's going side to side.
military presses from.
Military press is frontal, yes. So kind of go through this kind of quick. Close grip push up. Close grip
Sagittal.
push up. Sagittal. Regular push up.
Frontal.
Hmm?
Transverse.
Transverse. Headstand push up.
Frontal.
It's frontal. Alright, remember those?
See those two push-ups, I'm not sure which one I had.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying them all right now, because they were all kind of spread across there.
Yeah.
I'll get them graded, I'll let you guys know. Military press we just did, you guys, that's frontal. Side lunge,
Frontal.
regular lunge,
Sagittal.
squat,
Sagittal.
stepping up on a squat and rotating.
Transverse.
It's transverse. And I don't know which ones everybody had, I'm just kind of saying all the ones that are on there. That's all the ones that we had. So, how does the transverse motion hallway dissect the moving joint? Transverse. How's the hallway
Always the
dissect?
ceiling and floor.
Ceiling and the floor, and then we rotate inside the ceiling and the floor. What's the sagittal do? Sagittal, hallway,
Right and left.
right and left, and we move inside and right and left.
Yeah.
And frontal is
Front and back.
front and back, and move inside, there we go side to side. We're just going over the test, what's that?
Okay,
Okay.
they're not great, right?
Not great yet, I'm sorry, I got to get it about tomorrow, that's just me and Labor Day weekend, so I apologize. Describe the movement of flexion. Now, this is the one I thought my trips of people, we didn't talk a lot about this before the test came up, but when we do flexion, what happens to the body?
We decrease the joint angle.
Decrease the joint angle, so anytime we think about that, so that's a flexion, because we're decreasing the joint angle, anytime we decrease the joint angle, we're doing flexion. What plane of motion hallway does flexion always happening? Sagittal, because it's going up and down, just like it's going to the left and the right hallway. What about abduction, abduction? Describe that one.
It goes away from the body.
And then it goes away from the body in which plane of motion?
Frontal.
In front, because it's going side to side. That's abduction. What's the opposite of abduction?
Abduction.
Adduction, which is coming back, adding back to the middle,
To the body.
coming back to the middle. What is the axial skeleton? Axial.
It's in the middle of your body.
Your
And that's all.
spinal column.
Spinal, and all your ribs and
All
stuff.
your ribs,
Thorax.
all that organs, all that kind of crap. How many bones are in that one?
80.
Right, what's the other one? Some of you guys might have the other one. What's the appendicular?
It's 126, and that's everything else. Your
It's all your
limbs.
limbs and bones and stuff that connect to the axis. Alright, good. What occurs in the nervous system every time the muscle, or every time you move with your muscles? What's the first thing that happens? The brain does,
Sends a message to the body.
and develops a
Motor plan.
motor program. Then what happens? Muscle
Contract.
contracts,
Pulls,
muscle pulls on,
tendon,
tendons pull on,
bone,
and the joint does what?
moves and determined by the joint.
Moves in whatever's determined by that joint, or how many angles that it possibly can move on. What's proximal and what's distal? What's proximal?
Proximal is close to the heart, distal is away from the heart.
Right, proximal closer towards, distal's farther away. Some of you guys had prone and supine. What's prone?
Face down.
Laying face down. Supine is the other
Face
way.
up.
Face up. Some of you guys had medial and lateral. What's medial?
It was close to the,
Towards the middle.
towards the middle.
Lateral's on the outside.
Exactly.
Right, so your elbow has a medial and lateral. Medial part's gonna be the closer to the inside, would be the medial part of your of your elbow, and lateral will be out here.
Right.
Alright, I think those ones are on to that part of it. Types of bones, to give an example. Long bone, well, I said, long bone,
Femur.
femur. What's another example? I won't say them all of them.
The short is the wrist and the
Short in the wrist and the ankle.
The fat is the shoulder blade.
Okay, flat is the shoulder blade.
Irregular is the vertebrae.
Irregular is the vertebrae. Right, those are the four for that part. What else? That was it. There you go. So if you kind of have an idea based off what we just went there, you should have an idea what the grade's gonna be. Like I said, I'll get them graded tomorrow. Now, I want to do all that, just remembering in this class, everything's cumulative. So at the end of the semester, you're gonna have a cumulative exam. Some of these will show up again. Now, we'll review with you ahead of time, to make sure you have an understanding of that. That was probably the easiest test of the whole semester. Just being honest.
The
Now-
easiest or the hardest?
That was the easiest.
Okay, I thought you said it was gonna be the easiest. I mean, yeah.
That was.
And I thought you said that was gonna be the hardest.
No, that's definitely the easiest of the
Oh,
semester.
really? Okay.
They get progressively worse as we go.
Right.
Right. But I set you up a little bit for success in the first one. Right, now, talking about muscles. These are the 4 golden rules of muscles. If we understand these rules, we understand muscles, and everything else should be nice and gravy for the rest of this section before we have our test. Just make sure we understand these rules. Number 1, muscles only shrink and grow. That is it. They do nothing else. Muscles do not tone. Oh, here it comes.
You said muscles only shrink and grow?
Only shrink and grow. Muscles do not tone. Muscles do not shape. You get out in the real world, you change things up. There is no such thing as toning exercises. There's no such thing as a shaping program. Muscles don't do that. All they do is shrink or grow. If you want to get toned up, what do you have to do?
Work out.
Work out and burn what?
Carbs.
Burn fat.
Oh, same.
Carbs make fat, but burn fat. If you want to see your muscles more, you want to look more toned up, you have to burn fat. It's the only way things work. So burn fat, grow muscle, you will look more toned and more shaped. We'll talk about the fascial system later on next week. That's what actually gives your muscle shape. Think about something the year before. Your 8-pack, and technically there is an 8-pack, there was a 6-pack, but there is 2 more underneath there. You have an 8-pack that's determined by how all those abdominal muscles are held together. And as you grow those abdominal muscles, it makes the inside of those connective tissues grow out, and that's how you see your 6-pack and your 8-pack. You don't do specific ab exercises in different ways and different things, we'll talk about that here in a second, to make you have a 6-pack. It's all already developed when you're born. What do you gotta do to be able to see your 6-pack? Burn what? So lose fat, or burn fat. If you wanna see a 6-pack, you're not gonna tone up your abs, and you can do crunches all day long, but you're still keeping the same diet. Are you ever gonna see your 6-pack? You will not, because you have fat sitting on top of that, and you have to burn that stuff off. Okay? Muscles only shrink and grow. That is it, they do not do these 2. That's number 1. Number 2. Muscles only contract and relax. That is it. They are stupid little machines, and that's all that they do. We give them way too much credit for what they do, especially in the whole world of exercise and exercise program. That is it. This is what goes along with this one. There is no upper and lower muscles. Stop saying that when you're talking to people, when you're doing your own exercises. There is no such thing as lower ab. There is no such thing as upper pecs. I don't do incline to do upper pecs. That's all just a fallacy that goes across this world. People have been doing it for years. Arnold probably started way back in the day. And so I started doing his incline to get his upper pecs bigger. That does not work because they only contract and relax. That's all they do. Remember, they're stupid. When I do my abdominal work, and I go to do a sit-up, all of my abdominals will contract at the same time. And that's it. And then when I release it, they relax and I go back down. Contract and relax is all I do when I do a sit-up. I don't separate and say I'm just gonna do my lower abs and my upper abs. If I do a crunch, I'm only doing my upper abs. There's no such thing across the world of muscles. You guys give them way too much credit for what they're worth. Yes.
Yeah, I did. You have a pen from?
I don't have a pen. Anybody else have a pen or pencil?
No, it's okay. It worked.
Okay, so, somebody else wanna have one? What?
No, it worked.
I just gave one, but it's orange, so.
It
That's why I say
makes
it
you
worked.
look manly, it's okay.
It worked. No
I don't
problem.
actually, if I have one, I give you one, I have one. Cause Mr. Dixon's the last one. Alright, so you got those two, shrink and grow, and all they do is contract and relax, and that is it. Right, so as I write these down, understand what's going on here underneath it, 'cause you'll have some questions on this next test, I'll say, what is the fallacy that goes along with muscles only shrink and grow? You have to know that they do not tone, they do not shape. Okay, what is wrong with muscles only contract and relax? Or I'll say, which golden rule of the muscle, it says that there is no upper and lower muscles? You would say they only contract and relax. Different ways I can word this, we're gonna keep going over those, just have an idea what I'm writing underneath it too as well. Alright, there's two. Those two are kind of the easier ones. These other ones make sense too. Muscles only work on the joints they cross. Side bends and leg lifts. Should never happen in life for the reason that people think that they do. You guys will see as I kind of cross it off. We've already talked about side bending here, right? That's stupid exercise that people do all the time in gyms and DJR, Planet Fitness all the time. You are not working your obliques or your abs by doing that. Your obliques, which everybody thinks they're working when they do this, come up here and they cross this way, but they never actually cross over your upper part of your hip bone right here. They never go this way. So we're not working our obliques by doing that at all. We have to twist in order to work our obliques. Leg lifts we talked about the other day. Your abdominal muscles, do they ever cross your hip? If you don't know, we'll talk about it here in a second. Can you do that? Okay, so we can draw your crazy, like your six pack, right? Your six pack abs come down here, and you have your hip bones sitting through here, and they kind of go that way. This is your leg bones. Your abdominal muscles end right here and go across your trunk, right below your belt when you look at you if you're wearing a belt. That's where they cross. They never go out and come across my hip. So there's no reason to sit there and do these all day long to think you're working your lower abs. First of all, I already told you there's no lower abs anyways, but they never cross the hip joint to allow you to actually make that movement to work on your abs. Okay, what movement am I doing right now? Hip what? Hip flexion. Well, yeah, I'm doing hip flexion, you're right. So what muscles do that? Hip flexors, what's the main one? Anybody know what it's called? Don't have to know for this class, different class all day. It's called your psoas, big crazy hip flexor muscle. It actually starts on the back part of my hip here, comes all the way across and wraps around here and grabs onto my upper part of my leg bone and pulls me up every time it's short. Okay, where does it kind of go across though? It kind of ends right around this area, right where you think you have lower abs. So if you do this all day long, you're gonna feel it burn down there, but are your abs actually burning? What's burning? Your psoas muscle that comes way across here and it's doing all that work because you're sitting in the DJR, that crazy stupid machine going like this all day, right? You're not doing, first of all, there's no lower abs anyways, you're not even using your abs when you do that. So two things I've already talked to you guys about, if you're doing this, or if you're doing this, I'm gonna throw things at you when DJR finally does over.
It's like that machine where
So
you
that-
hold it on and hold yourself up and then bring your legs up.
That's what I'm talking about, okay? And I think we said it the other day, the only way this actually works where you're using your abs, again, don't say lower abs, is if you're gonna raise your pelvis up off the floor. So if I lay down my back right now, I'm not gonna do is I'll never get back up. And I put my legs at 90 degrees. So I'm telling you, I lay on my back right now, my legs are at 90 degrees. And from there, I push my legs right up to the ceiling where my hips are coming up off the floor. My abs are contracting and pulling my hips up off the floor. So in order to think about doing your lower abs, you can no lower abs. If you're making an ab exercise, you have to raise your pelvis up off the ground. If you're gonna use that stupid machine in DJR, you gotta bring your legs all the way up to the parallel of the ground, and then from there, curl your hips up off of that back pad. Now that's not gonna be very comfortable, it's gonna be very hard to do, hold yourself up like that, but that's how you would actually do it. Or if you're gonna raise them all the way up, and then add that motion at the very top, you'll get some ab work, but you're gonna primarily be working hip flexors to go from here to here. That make sense? So think about that and you get out in the real world. They only work on the joints they cross. Now, with that being said, uni, bi, and multi-articulate. I can spell it, I think. Joints are gonna have multiple ways or multiple positions that they cross. We know these words already. We talked about it with our joints. We talked about polyaxial stuff. What's uni? One. What's bi? What's multi? A bunch, we'll say a bunch. Alright, we don't have too many of these different kind of joints, we'll look at them in a second, I'll talk about a couple examples. But some muscles have a uni-articulate, means they can move the joint only one way. Some have bi, some have multi. Okay, so as you're writing that down, let's think about the big example we talk about a lot here in class, everybody knows where your biceps at, right? Where's your bicep? Right through here, right? We all know biceps primarily do what for us? They give us a nice curl, right? We go into DJR, we get our arms nice and pumped and swelled up, right? What motion is that? Elbow flexion. We know the biceps here, crosses the elbow joint, connects right around in here and pulls our arm up this way. So elbow flexion.
Is that sagittal?
It is sagittal, very good. It is up and down. Okay. So your bicep already has that one. It crosses here. What we may not know is your bicep also crosses your shoulder joint and connects up in this area here. So if my bicep is going, it can only contract and relax, right? So if my bicep is going to contract and pull, it's going to pull up this way. What motion is it going to actually help with? Shoulder flexion. Because it's right here and it crosses my shoulder joint, it's going to allow me to pull up this way. So your bicep does elbow flexion. It also, when it contracts, can do shoulder flexion. All right, you don't have to do it right now, sometimes you can feel that. If you get to here, you already made a bicep, and then pull again, you can actually feel your bicep kind of squeeze a little bit harder once you try to do elbow flexion at the same time. Third thing it does, it also crosses through here and allows us to do the motion we talked about before about trying to open and close the door. It'll cross across here, and when it squeezes and pulls, it actually will allow my thumb to go across, and it's called supination week, or pronation week that later, and it goes this way. So how many articulations does the bicep do? Multi, because it has a bunch of different stuff. Where are your quads at? Why is it called quads? How many muscles are there? Four. There's four actual muscles in your quads, different class, don't learn them from me. But your quads, what do they primarily do? When they contract, when it shortens, what's it gonna do? It's gonna pull me into knee extension. Right, so your knee extension machine in DJR, when it shortens and pulls, we're gonna go this way and pull ourselves into knee extension. One of the quad muscles also comes across the hip and will aid in hip flexion and pull ourselves up this way. So the quads have how many articulations? It does one down there, and there's one here, so it only has two, so that's actually the Bible.
So you're gonna count those? Oh, okay, never mind.
So it only does two. Okay? Where are your triceps at?
Behind the, on the back of your
The
arm.
back, right? What do your triceps primarily do?
Extension.
Elbow extension. So we get in DGR, we do this, we do some elbow extension exercises. So it's primarily gonna come, it's gonna, triceps in here, comes across your elbow, when it shortens and pulls, it's gonna extend my elbow. Do your triceps do anything else?
Maybe with your shoulder?
Maybe with your shoulder, very good. What do we say the biceps do?
And come across.
Come across and hit
Yeah.
aids with this, right? What do you think the triceps would do on the other side?
Just hold
And
it.
just put
Come
on.
across and help you with shoulder extension. So sometimes you actually can grab a dumbbells or whatever and you go back behind you, do some shoulder extension like this. People think you're working your shoulders, but you actually are working your triceps a lot when you do this kind of motion here. Kind of a crazy thought process.
What's the,
And we also said, for the biceps, come across here and do this, what do you think the triceps will do? Come across and do what? Let you go back the other way, right? So you see how there's multi-articulations that are happening with those muscles in this part of our arm.
I was saying like, what's the one when you got like the the bar and you lean over and you go like that? Is that what your back or your triceps?
That's for your back, that's like a row, you
Yeah.
know what you mean? Yeah, it's gonna be for your back muscles.
Oh, I thought it would be.
More for your scapular muscles. So once we get our arm out here, we've changed the direction of that joint. So now we're not going this way,
It's like this
we're
right
doing a different kind of muscle altogether, which is the next one I'm gonna put up here in a second. You answer that question?
But, so, the same, so like DB bro, when you got one leg on and you're still that way, is that also working?
That's still the back, or that's the
Yeah,
tricep?
That's a little bit of the tricep and also involves a little bit of your lat. But
But
yeah,
that's the same thing though.
more of your tricep than it is your lat. But once I get to here, that's what changes. for
Yeah,
you.
that's what.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you keep
your
it straight,
elbows,
yeah.
in, out.
Now think about what plane of motion is that when I'm out here. Think about your bench press, same idea. When I'm down this way,
That's still,
I'm transverse because I'm front and back, or I'm top and ceiling, and I'm going inside this one.
that's still up and down, right?
That's transverse, so I'm actually moving inside that one.
But when you turn your elbows in,
When I bring it in, now my hallway changes, now I'm left and the right, now I'm up and down. I know.
It's just confusing. But alright.
Go back to it, you're good.
No, I'm good.
Always
You said
remember,
when you like this is transverse?
always remember the hallways. So if I'm moving this way, so you think about today, remember the hallways I talked about?
Mm-hmm.
I have to have a top, and I have to have a ceiling, and I have to have a floor in order to move inside that. If I was standing up and doing that motion, I'd be looking like this.
So you're not touching the ceiling and the floor, you're going back and forth.
Right, so
And
if I was
moving
going
down
up and
here.
down, if I had a left and a right, I'd be banging into both, I just couldn't do it.
Okay.
All you're doing this motion, but you're just leaning over, you're
So
still doing
now-
the same motion.
But now when you're doing like that, it's top and bottom, or it's still
Sides.
side to
When I
side?
bend over,
Yeah, side to side.
it's still top, it's still the same motion, nothing's changed. I just
Yeah,
bend
I
over
think
to
the
do it.
same thing when you get tight again.
But when I bring it in,
Screw it.
That's,
right, so if I'm doing a row motion like this, that's up and down, left and right. If I bend over, I haven't changed that, I'm still up and down, left and right. Helping
I
a
get it
little
a
bit?
little bit, I get what you're saying.
Okay, we're gonna keep doing those, but yeah. Everybody got this one? What's the first one?
most of them are straight.
Shrink and grow.
Only shrink and grow, what's the second one?
Only
Contract
contract and
and
Only
relax.
contract and relax, what's the third one?
Only worries on the joints they cross.
Only works on the joints they cross. Alright, last one is. I'm making M and W.
Oh, so
Work.
the unibi multi right there, that had to do with number three?
That do number 3, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because we'll start talking about individual muscles and how they have different, your hamstrings, kind of a lot like your triceps. Hamstrings do what? When they shorten, they flex, they pull themselves up this way. The quads have one that comes across this way and actually helps with this. What do you think the hamstrings will do? When it comes across my butt, it helps with this motion coming back this way. If we ever done this, I mean, it's called a manual deadlift. We hold like this and keep your legs straight, you push this way and come back up. It's supposed to be a big hamstring exercise, it's actually more of a butt exercise than this hamstring. The hamstrings help with that because it does come across your butt. When I get down to here, my hamstrings will shorten and try to pull me back into extension. That's why it's a hamstring exercise. Your butt's primarily working there, but your hamstrings.
I mean, aren't they connected kind of way?
Kind of in a way, but when you're doing this, you're really working your butt more than your hamstrings because your butt's the bigger the muscle there.
Alright.
Your butt's the biggest muscle in your body. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, right? We just naturally.
Where?
Working direction. So muscles work best in the direction of their fibers, which is going to be parallel to the plane of motion. That'll make sense once we explain it here. I'll let you guys write it down and we'll explain it. And I think I spelled parallel, I don't even know, actually, I can't spell parallel ever in my life. If I didn't spell parallel, it's alright, you don't have to spell it right underneath it. Let's go back to our examples now, so that's what our plane of motion was. Sagittal, frontal transverse. Sagittal is primarily what kind of motion?
Up and down.
Up and down.
Front to side to side.
Frontal this side, gonna put S to S.
And then that's
Transverse
the,
is
yeah.
rotation.
that's how I just remember.
Put ROT for that one, rotation. So we think about specific muscle fibers. We've already talked about our bicep being a sagittal muscle, right? All biceps are gonna be up and down type motion. So based off what you just wrote down now, what direction do you think the muscle fibers look in? If I was able to see my bicep, take my skin off, the muscle fibers in the bicep are just gonna be also up and down.
Mhm.
So sagittal muscles, up and down, muscle fibers. Front and back of body. Think about how if we're gonna move up and down, they have to be in the front or they have to be in the back, like my hamstring. Hamstring does what? Flexion, which is sagittal, which is up and down. What do you think my hamstring muscle fibers are gonna look like? Gonna be up and down. Got it? Next round?
Sorry, I can't see. Okay.
Good. I need to go there, can you see? Good.
No, I'm good.
Alright, so frontal side to side. What do you think those muscle fibers are gonna look like? Now think about it for a second. What's the muscle fiber that's gonna work us side to side? Give me a muscle, example. What's in the side to side motion? I know these are always the hardest ones to think about. Alright, so your hip, if it's gonna go out, it's gonna come back in. Let's think about the in one, so you just wanna think about it. What muscle brings, if I start out here and go this way, what muscle brings me back that way? What's all in this muscle inside here?
Hamstring.
No, hamstring on the back. Starts with a G.
Groin?
Your groin, right? So all the muscles sitting out across the inner part of your thigh, your groin muscles pull you back in. That's a side motion that's gonna bring you back into adduction. Okay? Pulling back in that way, now, write it down first. There's still up and down fibers, but they're located inside and outside of body. And that got way down to the bottom, so you can't read my chicken scratches looking. But when we think frontal, we think side to side, they're still gonna be orientated up and down, but they're gonna be on the outside or the inside of my body. My groin is on the inside of my thigh. Still up and down. When they contract, they pull me into the frontal and they get me in the adduction. Where's your deltoids at? Where's your deltoids?
Does it locate inside and outside?
Shoulders.
Inside and outside the body.
I don't know the shoulders.
Deltoid is your shoulder, so the muscle sitting right through here. So if you do lateral raises in DJR, right? One of the big ones for the guys, you get in the mirror and they start looking like this, feel good about themselves. That's abduction going out, abduction going away from. My deltoid sits right here on the outside of my body. How do you think the muscle fibers are looking? Up and down. And every time these contract, it's going to pull my arm out that way and back down. That's going to be a frontal plane motion. All right. What is this with my neck? That's frontal plane, right?
Yeah,
Going side to side. What muscle do you think is going to be working this? We already kind of know it, and you're thinking. Not going in front though, remember, that's gonna work over the front part of the body. If it's in the front, it's gonna be more flexion and extension. What's that big muscle, once you picture go like this?
Traps.
Pop out your muscles, and you make your traps look real big. Your traps are sitting right through here, on the side of your neck, which is on the outside. I know it seems like it's on top, but it's really on the outside of your neck. Coming down this way, and whenever it shortens, it's gonna pull my head that way. Alright, see how we're doing that kind of motion that way? That's gonna be side to side, and your trap muscles on the outside, it's still gonna be orientated up and down, allows it to go side to side. Right? We think we do this to do our traps, we've already talked about this one, right? We're not really doing traps when we do shrugs, we're working off muscle all the time, different kind of muscle. We'll get to that one later when we talk about scapular stuff. Alright, so that one's sagittal, that one's frontal. So transverse now, before I write it down, what do you think about for transverse? Think about the things we just did for that one. How are these muscle fibers gonna be orientated? How are they gonna look? It's going to be parallel to the transverse plane. How are most of these going to be situated? They won't be up and down anymore. Where are they going to have to be? Side to side. Right, so now they're sitting like this, and whenever they shorten and contract, they're going to rotate us inside the transverse plane. So side to side fibers. And they're just usually located above and below joints used. So we said before, we're doing our abdominals. Abs are what? If we're going to do crunches, that's what kind of motion? It's not side to side, it is, if you're doing crunches,
Up and down.
up and down. So how are your ab muscles going to look?
They just
They're going to look like I'm going to squeeze them, but they're going to be situated and they're going to be looking like they're up and down. Everything's going to be this way.
yeah.
So when if I do any kind of rotation, am I using my abs at all if I'm going to rotate? Different muscle altogether, because my abs don't have any orientation look like this. My abs are always like this. So what muscle allows me to rotate? We've already said it here before. So
Hips.
oh, not your hips, what
Yeah,
muscle? Obliques, right?
I said- I was
Obliques
about to
on
say
the
oblique.
outside of your abs, and they sit more like this, they're orientated this way, so every time they shorten and contract, they're gonna pull me this way, and I have another one this way that's gonna pull me that way. When I'm doing Russian twist, these obliques are constantly contracting, allow me to be able to twist. Okay? Makes sense? Right, 4 golden rules, this is definitely something to know, and be on your next test, and will be on your final. So make sure you know all those as we start talking about. Alright, last thing for the. You guys jumped in a little bit later, went over the test already, so these guys kinda heard the answers, but haven't graded them yet, I'll make sure I get them graded by tomorrow. Apologize for that. But I did make sure I tell them, remember this class is cumulative, at the end of the semester, you're gonna see some of that stuff again. And we'll make sure you kinda have a review for that final exam, but those questions you just had will probably pop up again off of that test. Alright, so let's look at the last one, we'll talk about your pecs. Where your pecs at? Your chest. Well, what's the main, give me an exercise that works your pecs.
Bench press.
Bench press, that's your biggest one. What joint does the pecs cross, or do the pecs cross?
Shoulder.
Your shoulder. So if I'm doing a bench press, my shoulder is primarily moving at my pecs. I know your elbow works too, that's not your main move, your chest is what's doing most of the work in any kind of a bench press. So it crosses the shoulder. What motions occur because of what the pecs do? Now let's think for a second. We haven't talked a lot about this one yet. When we're doing a bench press, we said this is abduction and abduction, right? So if I'm out here and I come in this way, I'm still doing adduction. We all kind of agree there?
Mm-hmm.
If I go back the other way, I'm still doing abduction. But what's changed with the relation of how my arm looks? From here to here, my arms do what? Here's what it's called. When you go to the beach, you're looking out the water. This is called the horizon. You guys ever heard that before? You never heard that? All right, so the straight, any kind of a straight line looking out like at the ocean, looking out that way, the straight line is called the horizon. Once I get my arms up here in this position here, it actually is called horizontal. And then it does the adduction and abduction. Now remember, the horizontal is the key component to that, because once I raise my arms up in this area here, now I'm doing horizontal abduction and horizontal abduction. These always tend to get overly confused, and I'm trying not to make it confusing as best I possibly can, because we know these are side-to-side motions. We've already talked about these being out here side-to-side. But once I put my arms up here, what plane of motion am I in when I do this? We already know what the bench press occurs in what plane of motion?
Well, I've done plane of motion,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Hip section.
transverse.
Transverse, right? Once I put my arms up here and I start going abduction and adduction, I've actually switched from frontal into transverse, just by doing this, right? How do my chest muscles look right now? And then, let's see the picture. This is the best way to think about it. My chest muscles kind of sit almost up and down right now with my arms at my side. Once it goes out to the side, what happens to my chest muscles? They've turned this way. Now what plane of motion are they parallel to? Horizontal, and parallel to the transverse plane, which allows me to move in this motion here, right? Remember your fourth golden rule there. They work best in the direction of other fibers. When it's down by my side, it's more shaped up and down, but when it contracts here, it's not gonna do too much. I have to bring it out here in order to actually make a muscle and do stuff out here. Now I'm doing this, right? So when we are in close, and we're doing close grip push-ups, what muscle are we primarily using on a close grip push-up? Your triceps, and that's primarily why. The muscle is not in a position where it's gonna be in a position where the fibers can be used in order to do a regular push-up. I'm out here and now I'm more horizontal, and I'm in transverse plane motion. Okay, does that make sense a little bit? That's horizontal adduction and abduction, that's what the pecs primarily do for us. The pecs also do internal rotation. We've already talked about that one. Remember our thought process of internal rotation. If I'm out here and I pull my way in, your pecs, and it's the only time when they're kind of down, because they do kind of come across this way, when they shorten and contract, they allow me to do internal rotation and pull my arms in this way. Okay. horizontal adduction, horizontal abduction, internal rotation. Now, with the pecs do external rotation.
The pec doesn't do
The
it.
pec doesn't do it. What part, I mean, we don't know the muscle yet. Where that muscle be looking at that's gonna pull me out?
Shoulders.
Shoulder or somewhere on the back of me. The
Mhm.
front of me is gonna do the internal rotation part, but the opposite muscle is gonna be back here somewhere to pull me the other way. The chest, when we're doing a bench press, it's horizontal adduction when I'm actually trying to work and make the muscle stronger. If I was gonna do a different motion and grab this way and pull this way, horizontal abduction is a different muscle altogether if I'm actually working in the weight room.
You
So
working
if
your
I do
back.
a row,
You working your back more.
doing my back more, this kinda goes to what Tay's example was, if I'm doing that row where I'm bent over, I'm doing horizontal abduction, but the muscles on my back are actually being worked, and my chest is kinda the other side, we're gonna talk about the different kind of muscles tomorrow. Okay? That's a quick example, we're gonna start doing a lot of different muscles as we kinda look at these, right? Pecs is a little more complicated, throw them up there first, give me another muscle real quick before we leave though, give me a muscle, throw a muscle out.
Calf.
Calf muscle. Okay, where's your calf located at? If I'm saying anatomical, give me a directional term.
Behind.
Is it anterior or is it posterior?
Posterior.
Posterior, it's behind,
Yeah.
okay?
Into
Inferior of your quads.
What muscle, or, I'm sorry, what joint does the calf, or will the calf cross? Think for a
Knee.
second, think about KD, what happened to KD?
Knee.
Achilles?
The knee at the top, and then what other part? The Achilles tendon, where does that actually cross?
The ankle.
The ankle, that's the actual joint. So when my calf shortens or contracts and starts making this motion, it's gonna pull on my tendon, which is gonna pull on my ankle bone, my heel bone, and it's allowing me to go into plantar flexion and lift myself up off the ground onto my toe. That's what your calf would do. Okay. The other part, and we'll talk about your calf a little bit, because your calf's a little bit weird, but it also has a top part which goes across your knee and helps with knee flexion. So your calf has two different areas that it crosses, makes it bi-articulate, remember that other word? It allows you to have two different motions going on. Okay. Give me another muscle real quick.
You said another muscle?
Any muscle.
Bicep.
Bicep, we talked about already. What does it do? It sits here, crosses what joint? Primarily.
Shoulder.
Yeah, well, it also crosses the shoulder, and they said it also crosses through here.
Mhm.
And when it pulls and shortens, it does that. It also can pull and shorten and do this, and it can pull and shorten and do that. It can do three different motions altogether.
Uniarticulate.
That's multi-articulate.
Multi-articulate.
Yeah, you means only one, remember?
That's right, yeah.
That's right. All right, let's do the last one. Let's do your buttocks. All right, where's your butt at?
Posterior.
Posterior. What do you think it's gonna help us with?
Squatting.
Squatting,
Pick
yes.
stuff up.
Standing.
Step up, standing.
Hands.
It's gonna do side to side motion.
Yeah.
Not so much. Remember, we talked about our saddle raise. Remember, saddle's primarily gonna be on the front and on the back. So your butt primarily sits back here. Now, it does have a little bit of translation when it goes towards your hip, but the big meat of your butt is all right on the back with muscles or fibers that go up and down. So, I never stand up my butt, I feel weird now. So if everything's going up and down, when this shortens and contracts, it's gonna pull me into hip extension. When I squat, and do a squat motion in DJR, and I come down here, I'm flexing my hip. In order to come back up, I have to do a hip extension, right? When I'm pushing up with the weight, my quads are contraction, but also my butt is contracting as I do hip extension. That's why squats make your butt bigger, essentially, if you have a squat. Okay. All right, those make sense? All right, what are the 4 rules? Then we'll let you leave.
Muscles only shrink and grow.
Shrink and grow,
They only contract and relax.
contract and relax,
They work on the joints that
They
cross.
once they cross,
And work in the direction of the fibers.
make sure the fibers, which is parallel to the plane of motion that they're doing, right? Those are your 4 ones.
What was
Start getting
the?
those in your head.
I said cringe. What they?
Which one?
I said cringe for one of them. I wrote cringe.
Shrink and grow and
Shrink and
contract and
grow.
relax, is that what you're looking?
Retract and relax. That's
Contract and
right. I
relax,
put
you're not
cringe and
cringe,
relax.
contract and relax. Alright, let's go, see you guys tomorrow.
Dang, man. One good one.
You see me on the Zoom meeting today for, you think,
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, we went into, phase 2.5. Our varsity guys are every Wednesday at 4 o'clock to 5:30. My JV guys are every Friday, so that won't matter, 4 to 5:30. So I'm gonna just take my computer into like, there's a spot in between our locker rooms where we get Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna do the class there, and then whenever we finish, I'll hop up to the gym.
So we should only be 20 minutes at the most.
Yeah, I
We
figured
shouldn't
they're
keep
usually
away
not
from-
that long.
Yeah. Okay. You get that to,
And Han said something like his stomach was hurt or something.
don't forget to take your time.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.